You know that feeling when you check your bank account, and instead of immediately closing the app in horror, you actually smile, like when you stop calculating whether you can afford that coffee or buying groceries. Means eating ramen for the rest of the week? There is a specific number where this shift happens, and it is not what most people think. Most financial gurus will tell you that you need $1 million to feel wealthy or that six figures is the magic number. But here is the thing they are all missing. There is a much smaller milestone that completely transforms your relationship with money, and once you hit it, everything changes. That number is $20,000. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others stay stuck in the same financial patterns for decades. If you are someone who wants to understand the real mechanics behind wealth building instead of just hoping things will magically improve, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up helping you see money differently. Now, before we dive into why $20,000 is the real game changer, let me ask you something. When you think about building wealth, what comes to mind? Maybe you picture some trust fund kid who never had to worry about money. Or perhaps you imagine someone grinding away for years, slowly accumulating wealth, $1 at a time. The truth is, wealth building does not work the way most people think it does. Here is what actually happens. There are certain financial thresholds that act like invisible barriers in your life. Once you cross them, the rules of the game completely change. 20,000 is the first major threshold that separates those who will build significant wealth from those who will spend their entire lives living paycheck to paycheck. And the crazy part is, most people have no idea this threshold even exists in the first place. Think about it this way. If you have ever tried to push a heavy boulder up a steep hill, you know it is hard. Getting it started is the hardest part because you are straining, sweating, and making very little progress at first. You might even start questioning whether it is even possible to reach the top. But once you build enough momentum, something magical happens. The boulder starts moving faster, and eventually, when you reach the peak, it rolls down the other side almost effortlessly without you having to push it at all. 20,000 is that turning point. It is the moment where your financial boulder finally crests the hill and starts moving in your favor. Everything before this point feels like you are pushing uphill against gravity every single day. Everything after this point feels like gravity is working in your favor to help you move faster. But here is where it gets really interesting, and this is something that will probably surprise you quite a bit. The difference isn't just mathematical or about the numbers on the screen. It is not simply that you have more money to invest or that your returns are larger in absolute terms. The real magic happens inside your brain. When you do not have money saved, your brain operates in what psychologists call survival mode. Every financial decision is filtered through fear and scarcity because you are constantly worried about the next bill. You take the first job offer that comes along, even if it is a terrible job, because you cannot afford to be picky. You stay in situations you hate because leaving feels too risky for your bank account. You say yes to things you do not want to do simply because you need the money to survive another month. This isn't just about being practical. It is about your brain literally being unable to think about growth and opportunity when it is focused on survival. It is like trying to plan a luxury vacation while your house is currently on fire. Your mental bandwidth is completely consumed by immediate threats and short-term survival rather than long-term goals. But something remarkable happens when you cross that $20,000 threshold for the first time. Suddenly, your brain has the space to think differently and look at the world from a new perspective. Instead of asking, how do I survive until the next paycheck, you start asking, how can I grow this money? Instead of being reactive to whatever financial crisis pops up, you become proactive about building your future wealth. Research from Vanguard shows that having just $2,000 in emergency savings increases your well-being. It boosts your financial well-being by 21%. $2,000, that is less than most people spend on a vacation or a fancy laptop, but that small buffer creates a massive psychological shift. It moves you out of pure survival mode and into a state where you can breathe a little bit easier. When you push that emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for most people lands somewhere around $20,000, you get another 13% boost in financial well-being. But more importantly, you have now created enough breathing room for your brain to start thinking strategically. You can start thinking about wealth building instead of just wealth preservation or staying afloat. Here is where the math starts getting really exciting for anyone who wants to become wealthy. Let us say you are saving $1,000 every month and earning an 8% return on your investments. Getting to your first $20,000 takes about 19 months of consistent saving and investing. That is a year and a half of discipline, sacrifice, and delayed gratification to reach that milestone. It is not easy, and frankly, most people give up somewhere along the way because they don't see results fast enough. But here is the part that will blow your mind and change the way you look at compound interest. Your second $20,000 does not take another 19 months of hard work and saving. It only takes about 17 months to reach the next $40,000 mark. Why is that? Because now you have got that first $20,000 working alongside your monthly contributions every day. It is generating its own returns and building on itself while you continue to add to it. Think about this. For a second, you did the exact same amount of work, saved the same amount each month, and took the same level of risk with your investments, but you shaved 2 full months off the timeline just like that. That is the power of compound interest starting to kick in and work for you instead of against you. By the time you are going for your third 20,000, the timeline shrinks even more significantly. Your money is doing an increasing share of the heavy lifting while you are putting in the same effort as before. And when you get to the really big numbers, the acceleration becomes almost comical and hard to believe. Once you hit $400,000 in your investment portfolio, you can generate your next $20,000 in just 5 months. The same amount that took you nearly 2 years to save initially is now happening automatically through your investments while you sleep. That first milestone feels impossible at first, but every milestone after that gets progressively easier as the momentum builds up. Now, you might be thinking that wealthy people have access to some secret investment world that regular folks cannot touch. You might think there are exclusive hedge funds or special opportunities that only unlock once you are rich. And while there is some truth to that at the ultra high end of the market, it is not what is driving this $20,000 phenomenon. The real secret is much simpler and, honestly, much more encouraging. It is just basic mathematics working in your favor through the power of consistency. When you invest $1,000 and it grows 10% in a year, you make $100, which feels small, but take that exact same 10% growth rate and apply it to $10,000 instead. Suddenly, you are looking at $1,000 in profit from the same investment and same time frame. This is why hitting $20,000 feels like such a massive turning point in your financial journey. Up until that point, your investment returns feel almost insignificant because you are working with small amounts. A 10% return on $2,000 is only $200, nice, but not exactly life-changing for you. But a 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000. Now we are talking about money that matters. When you have got $20,000 sitting in investments earning 8% annually, that is $1,600 flowing into your account over the course of a year without you having to lift a single finger. It is money you didn't have to earn through your job or by trading your precious time for a paycheck. It is money that showed up because your existing money was working on your behalf around the clock. The investment strategy isn't any more sophisticated than what someone with $1,000 can use. You can buy the exact same index funds, use the same brokerages, and follow the same basic principles. The only difference is scale, and that scale transforms small percentage wins into real financial progress. But here is the part that most people completely miss, and it might be the most important point of all. When you save $20,000, you have actually accomplished something far more valuable than the money. You have fundamentally rewired your brain and built the most important financial habit you will ever develop. And this might sound like some self-help nonsense, but stick with me because this is where it gets practical. Think about what it actually takes to save $20,000 if you are starting from zero. Unless you are making ridiculous money or living in your parents' basement rent-free, this requires discipline. You had to track where every dollar was going and manage your spending with extreme care every week. You had to say no to things you wanted so you could set money aside for your future self instead. You had to resist the urge to blow your savings on whatever shiny object caught your attention that week. Most importantly, you had to do all of this consistently for months or even years without giving up. And here is the kicker. You proved to yourself that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. You became the type of person who can delay gratification when it really matters for your long-term success. That is not just a financial skill, that is a life skill that will serve you in every area of your existence. This identity shift is huge because it affects every financial decision you make going forward from now on. Before you had $20,000 saved, buying a $4 coffee might have required mental gymnastics. You would wonder whether you could afford it or if it would mess up your budget for the rest of the week. After you hit $20,000, you're not sweating the small stuff anymore because you know your priorities. You've proven you can make the big sacrifices when necessary, so a coffee doesn't scare you anymore. But there is another psychological shift that happens at this level that most people don't talk about. You start seeing opportunities instead of just threats everywhere you look in your daily life. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every unexpected expense feels like a total disaster for you. Your car needs repairs, your laptop dies, your rent goes up. These are financial emergencies that hurt. They derail your entire month and force you to scramble for money just to survive the week. But when you have 20,000 in the bank, these same events become minor inconveniences at worst. Your car needs repairs? Annoying, but not catastrophic for your lifestyle or your future goals. Your laptop dies? It's just time to upgrade to something better that will help you work more efficiently. Your rent goes up? Maybe it's time to finally look for a better place or negotiate your salary with confidence. Even better, you start noticing opportunities that were always there but you couldn't take advantage of before. Your friend mentions they're starting a business and looking for investors to help them grow. Before, you would have thought, that sounds interesting, and moved on because you had no cash. Now, you can actually consider whether it's worth throwing $5,000 at it for a piece of the pie. A killer deal pops up on a rental property that needs some work but has great potential for profit. Before, you would have scrolled past it on Zillow and maybe felt a little envious of people who could buy it. Now you can run the numbers and see if it makes sense as an investment for your growing portfolio. Your boss mentions there's a conference in another city that could be great for your career advancement. But the company won't pay for it, and you have to cover the costs yourself if you want to go. Before, you would have made excuses about why you can't afford to go and missed out on the networking. Now you can weigh the potential return on investment for your career and make a logical decision. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money goes to money and it's not a conspiracy. It's not some cosmic plan where the universe rewards people who already have a lot of cash in the bank. It's that having money gives you options, and options create more opportunities to make even more money. Here is something else that happens around the $20,000 mark that will make you think. It will make you question everything you thought you knew about budgeting and managing your expenses. You start caring less about small expenses and more about big ones because you see the big picture. I know that sounds backwards to what most people are taught, but hear me out on this one. When you're broke, you obsess over every single purchase, even the tiny ones like a bag of chips. Should I buy the name brand cereal or the generic version to save a few cents today? Is it worth spending $3 on coffee when I could make it at home for practically nothing? Should I get the premium gas or the regular gas to save $5 at the pump this week? These decisions consume mental energy because every single dollar feels precious and scarce to you. But when you have a solid financial foundation, you realize these micro decisions are largely irrelevant. The difference between spending $3 on coffee versus making it at home is small over a year. It is maybe $1,000 per year if you're really going overboard with your daily habits. That is not nothing, but it's not going to make or break your financial future in the long run. What really matters are the big decisions that impact your net worth by thousands of dollars. Where you live, what you drive, how much you save, and where you choose to invest your money. These choices can swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars over time without much effort. So instead of agonizing over whether to buy organic bananas or regular ones at the grocery store, you focus your energy on optimizing your housing costs and maximizing your total income each year. You make sure your investment strategy is solid and that you are not paying unnecessary fees to banks. This shift in focus is incredibly liberating because it frees up mental bandwidth for better decisions. You stop sweating the small stuff and start thinking strategically about building your wealth for real. Now, let's talk about what happens to your career once you hit this $20,000 milestone. This is where things get really interesting for your professional life and your negotiation power. Having money saved doesn't just change your relationship with money, it changes your work life too. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're essentially trapped in whatever job you currently have. Your boss could be terrible, your coworkers could be toxic, and the work could be mind-numbing. But you can't leave because you need that next paycheck just to survive and pay your bills. This puts you in an incredibly weak negotiating position whenever you talk to your employer. You can't ask for a raise because you're afraid they might fire you if you push too hard. You can't push back on unreasonable demands because you need the job more than they need you. You can't explore other opportunities because taking time off for interviews feels too risky for you. You're stuck in a loop, and everyone knows it, which makes it harder to get ahead in your career. But $20,000 changes the entire dynamic of your relationship with your employer. Suddenly, you have what I call walking away money that gives you a new sense of freedom. You could quit tomorrow and survive for months while you find something better that fits you. This doesn't mean you should be reckless or burn bridges unnecessarily with people you know, but it means you're negotiating from a position of strength instead of desperation every day. This psychological shift affects everything about how you approach your career and your goals. You start asking for the raise you deserve because the worst they can say is no, and you'll be fine. You push back on unreasonable requests because you're not afraid of the consequences anymore. You explore new opportunities because you can afford to take some risks to find a better fit. Here's what's really crazy about this situation. Often, You don't even need to use the money. Just having it in your account changes your entire demeanor and the way you carry yourself at work. You become more confident, more assertive, and more willing to take on challenging projects. And guess what happens when you show up differently? People notice the change in your attitude. Suddenly you're getting better assignments, more recognition, and yes, even more money. It's like having a secret superpower that you hope you never have to use, but you're glad it's there. Knowing it's there changes everything about how you operate and how people treat you. And the best part is, the more confident and successful you become, the faster you build wealth. It creates a positive feedback loop that accelerates over time and leads to even more options. But here is where most people mess this up, and I see it happening constantly with my own eyes. They hit 20,000, feel that psychological shift, and then immediately blow it on something. Maybe they decide they deserve a brand new car since they've been so disciplined with their money. Or they take an expensive vacation because they've earned it after working so hard for so long. Or they use it as a down payment on a house they can't really afford in the long run. Don't do this if you want to be truly wealthy. That money is not a reward for good behavior. It's the foundation of your entire financial future and the key to your long-term freedom. It's the seed that grows into generational wealth if you're patient enough to let it grow. Instead, let's look at some facts that will probably make you laugh or cry depending on your life. The average person spends more money on their car over their lifetime than it would take to be free. It would take less than that to achieve complete financial independence if they invested it instead. Think about that for a second. Car payments, insurance, maintenance, and gas add up fast. Most people are dropping $600 to $800 every single month on transport. Over a 40-year period, that's easily $400,000 or more just for a car. That's a lot of money just to get from point A to point B in a slightly shinier vehicle. Meanwhile, they're complaining that they can't afford to save for their retirement at all. It's like watching someone spend a fortune on a gym membership they never actually use, while they complain they can't afford to eat healthy food to improve their physical health. Here is the thing that makes this even more ridiculous. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value. So you're not just spending money, you're killing wealth. You're actively destroying your potential wealth for a feeling of status that won't last long. Compare that to investing the same amount in a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds. Instead of watching your money evaporate into thin air, you're watching it multiply and grow. But I get it, cars are emotional purchases that make us feel good and successful in society. You want something reliable, something that looks good, and something that makes you feel great. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand what you're trading off in return. That car payment might make you feel wealthy today, but it's actually keeping you poor for tomorrow. This is where having 20,000 saved completely changes your perspective on big buys. Instead of thinking, can I afford the monthly payment? You start thinking about the real cost. You ask, what is this really costing me in terms of opportunity and future freedom? That $30,000 car isn't just $30,000 out of your pocket today. It's $30,000 that could have grown to over $200,000 in your account later. Over 20 years of compounding, that money could have changed your entire life forever. Suddenly, driving a reliable used car doesn't feel like a sacrifice or a bad thing anymore. It feels like a strategic choice that's funding your future freedom and your early retirement. And here is the beautiful irony of the whole situation. The person in the flashy car is stressed. They are probably worried about their payments and their job every single day of the week, while the person driving the older Honda is quietly building wealth and sleeping like a baby. They are sleeping better at night because they know they have a safety net and a plan. This mindset shift extends to every major financial decision you make in your life going forward. Housing, education, vacations, hobbies, everything gets filtered through the lens of opportunity. Not in an obsessive way that sucks all the joy out of your life, because you still need to live, but in a strategic way that ensures you're making intentional choices about your hard-earned money. And let me tell you something that might surprise you. You often realize you don't want half the stuff. Once you start thinking this way, half the things you thought you wanted don't seem so important. That bigger apartment? The extra space would be nice, but is it worth 5 more years of working? That expensive hobby? It's fun, but there are probably cheaper ways to get that same feeling. This isn't about becoming a penny-pinching miser who never enjoys a single moment of life. It's about becoming intentional with your money instead of letting it slip away on junk. When you have clear financial goals and understand the power of compound interest, it's easier. It becomes much easier to distinguish between what you want now and what you want most. Look, $20,000 isn't going to make you rich overnight or solve all your problems, but it will fundamentally change how you think about money, opportunity, and your future. It's the difference between surviving and thriving in a world that is constantly getting more expensive. It's the difference between reacting to life and designing the life you actually want to live. Start building that foundation today, because your future self is counting on you right now. They are counting on the decisions you make today to give them a better life tomorrow. Trust me, they'll thank you for the discipline and the hard work you put in today. It will all be worth it when you reach that milestone and see the world in a new way. Thank you for watching, and start your journey to $20,000 right now.